the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. So we are constantly growing, right? I love it. Somebody said that to me, and I am going to use that one forever.
I heard it through the grapevine. Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine, half-hour variety hour featuring the collected voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Sam, an alcoholic in Palm Springs, California.
And I'm Don, an alcoholic in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Don!
What do you say, Sammy?
It's weird here. It's rainy and thunderstormy, and that doesn't happen in Palm Springs.
What? A thunderstorm in Palm Springs?
It's almost like snow in the middle of North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, unusual. I don't know what it portends.
Hopefully the power will stay on, right?
That's what happens here. The power goes off in North Carolina, and you get those thunderstorms. Yeah. Sam, does your home group have any idiosyncrasies?
What did you call me?
Idiosyncratic.
Oh, weird things.
Weird things that your home group does that other groups don't do.
Oh, my God. Do you have time? There's a long, long list.
I like all groups that have some kind of special English that they put on it.
Yeah, we are definitely a unique group in here in the Valley. I've heard of other groups like ours, but I love that Shipwreck it's a men's meeting on Friday nights at 7 o'clock in Palm Desert, California. And it is rowdy and boisterous and just off the chain when it starts. Then the middle is all about solution. Yeah. And then we end it with rowdy, boisterous, and off the chain. There's a lot of callbacks when the readings are being done. Crosstalk is encouraged during portions of the meeting where it's all said with love. And, we have a lot of fun.
But then it gets to the recovery part.
Exactly.
You dig in. But you do have some little quirks there at the beginning and at the end.
Oh, gosh, yes.
My home group is the Way Out group, which is a big book study, and we use a study guide, which is probably what's idiosyncratic about us is we have this study guide that we use that takes a paragraph or a couple of sentences at a time and asks, what's the point being made in the text is always the question. But about 5 years ago, I went to a wedding, so I got all of the little bubble tubes that were at the wedding and put them in my bag that I carry my big book in, and I would distribute them whenever there was a home group birthday. So we've always had these little polite bubbles.
It's like the Lawrence Welk show of big book meetings. How dare you people be laughing and doing silly things blowing bubbles?
That's a good point. Sam, who's our guest today?
Don, we're welcoming Anthony M. from Sleepy Hollow, New York.
Woo! Now, I have to do that with Sleepy Hollow.
We're also going to have one of our history snippets with Mily T.
Ooh, a little bit of history. But first, the news!
There's an opening for an AA Grapevine non-trustee director. Non-trustee directors are AA members selected for their business or professional experience that relates to the activity of the corporation.
A non-trustee director may serve up to 4 successive one-year terms. For more details on how to apply, visit aagrapevine.org or look in the Grapevine app under Important Updates.
Or the News tab in the AA Meeting Guide app. The deadline for applications is November 12, 2025. Hi, folks. We need your stories on the individual traditions. Pick one and write about your or your group's experience with it. How has a tradition played a part in your life? How has your understanding of a tradition changed? What is a personal experience where a tradition played a part? Visit aagrapevine.org for guidelines and to submit.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anthony, and I am an alcoholic. I'm from Sleepy Hollow, New York.
Woo!
Sorry. Don't lose your head. I lost my head in Sleepy Hollow. That's a bumper sticker we have here. I'm a member of the Pecanico Hills group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My sponsor is Billy D. My sobriety date is January 11th, 1986. So
Sheesh.
I was an infant when I came in.
Yeah, okay. Did you say mechanical hills or botanical hills?
Pocantico. So not to
But
be confused with poke and tickle. It's Pocantico, Pocantio, Pocantico. And we're on the majestic Hudson River.
wow.
Sounds gorgeous. I'd be afraid to walk in those woods by myself, though.
Yes, there was a witch there. Hula the witch.
There was a witch and something about a headless horseman.
No, he was down at the bridge, down the street from my house. Yeah,
Oh.
with the old Dutch church of Sleepy Hollow. Yeah, we have an old church that's been here since the 1600s.
Oh, wow.
Did you get sober in Sleepy Hollow?
I did. My first home group was called the 12 and 12 group of Mohegan Lake. And my first meeting was at a group called Noon Unity. I had
Noon meeting.
I got 12 step by a guy in the program who I connected with, and he told me about AA. And, I was at the point in my life where I had that upset stomach constantly, that anxiety, and I'd been very young. I was 23 years old. And I met a girl who had a black belt in Al-Anon. And her father was in the program. So she introduced me to her friend who was in the program, this guy who 12-stepped me. And he told me that he went to AA meetings, and that helped him to uncover what was stuffed way down here in his stomach. And he told me more about how it connected with what was in his mind and helped fill a hole in his soul.
It sounds like he made it attractive to you.
He really did. I mean, I was looking at the material things. He had a beautiful wife, two beautiful kids, a hoop in the driveway, nice house. And he had his own business, which I had done to myself. I had quit my job. They showed me the door, and I had started my own business. So it was attractive to me. After he told me all of that, I was like, well, I'd love to go to a meeting. He said, well, there's one in about a half an hour.
Oh.
And I was like,
I didn't need now.
I don't know about tonight. Just meeting with this guy. His name is Jack B. He's down in Coral Springs, Florida now. He took me to my first meeting. It was an afternoon meeting. I walked into this room, and the energy was like palatable. And people were laughing, and there was a fire in the fireplace and a big picture window overlooking the lake. It's so unique to many meetings. I've been to some nice meetings, don't get me wrong, but I think for me today, looking back on it, I felt the grace of God in the room. I was the type of guy that, was barred from a lot of the bars, and I felt really welcomed and, not worthy of the situation. And they wished me back and gave me their numbers. And it was just the type of situation where I got sober. I mean, that was my very first meeting, and I haven't drank since. I joined that guy's group, and I was one angry dude. Later on, I found out that they were taking bets to whether or not I was going to make it to my 90 days. Back then, we smoked in the meetings. So the ABCs of the program, right? Ashtrays, brooms, and coffee, or ashtrays, brooms, and chairs. And I didn't have a lot of direction growing up. I was like a feral cat that turned into the junkyard dog. And the idea of having a sponsor was kind of like a mentor to me. My father was not a big part of my life back then. Children were seen and not heard. And my dad was also a compulsive gambler, so he was chasing his demons, so to speak. And I think a sponsor was really good because I had somebody to talk to. I think I was alone. I was really a lone wolf. And I was at a beginners meeting one day, and there was a little bit of crosstalk that you were speaking about, Sam. And the guy said to me, "You gotta join a group, and you gotta get a sponsor." And right in the middle of the meeting, I called him on it. I said, "All right, well then you be my sponsor." And he looked and says, "All right, we'll talk after the meeting." And I was like, "Oh, what happened here?"
When you went to that first meeting, you totally identified in, and you had no problem going. You went to a meeting the next day?
Yeah, the energy in that room was, I wanted more. It was like the first time you got drunk. I was chasing that butterfly for a long time. And I did get a lot of rewards, going to meetings, and, I had a fast car, and then the group was like 25 minutes away. So we're really 35 minutes away. So back
Not
then,
the
I
way
guess,
you drive.
God forbid I went to meetings in my hometown.
uh,
Everybody knows I've got a drinking problem. I can't let them know I'm doing something about it.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
love that you mentioned about how a sponsor showed up for you, the waves, because a sponsor in so many cases can wind up being the first real relationship that we have in recovery. Sponsorship looks so many different ways. There's many different styles of sponsorships as there are sponsors.
well, what is a sponsor, Sam?
The sponsor is someone who has worked the steps, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, helping someone else work the steps, the program
Yeah.
of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's the short of it.
And then it's a guide.
What are your thoughts about what a sponsor is, Anthony?
It was really, a mentor, someone who I can look up to, someone who I can let into my head, which was a really bad neighborhood. I didn't even want to go there. I started drinking when I was about 13. I went to my first Dead show in 1977, and I never went back to school. I dropped out of school when I was in 10th grade. And there were people in my life who I listened to, which were kind of on the wrong side of town, so to speak. I lent money with usury interest rates, and I sold drugs, and I was one of those kind of maybe gangster wannabes, that type of thing. And when I was able to kind of put my head on straight a little bit, and I remember I had a family member who was a cop, and he said, if you could put that much effort into staying sober, and even in your own business, you will be a success. And those little things that I would hear along the
Yeah.
way, people would give these messages. And I
Yeah.
think it was like somewhere along the line when I started listening, little things started happening, little many miracles.
Describe a miracle. What are you talking about? What's one of those little things?
I had a white light experience where I was reading As Bill Sees It. And the second page, he described his white light experience. And as I was reading that, I lived it was the summertime, and it was a third floor apartment, very hot. You live in the attic pretty much, right? And it was dark and gloomy and rainy. And as I read that, and I had the windows open, obviously, because it was so darn hot. And all of a sudden, as I read it, the wind blew through the apartment, through and through. And all of a sudden, the sun came out. And I was just like, woohoo, woohoo, woohoo. I called my sponsor, and he was like, whatever it is, hold on to it, because you sound so much better today than you did, yesterday when you called me. And then once I was open, the things I learned early on were the key was how, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, right? And I
Mhm.
think that because I was still teachable, or I became teachable, or maybe I wasn't teachable, that I was able to really listen to the guidance that I was getting from my sponsor.
Describe working the steps the first time and how, as a sponsor, you carry someone through the steps in a practical way. How did you do the steps?
While I had to practice the first step, and my first step was, um, you know, we admitted we are powerless over alcohol, and that our lives have become unmanageable. For me, it also added in all mood changing drugs and people, places, and things. Because for me, if I had hung around with the same crew, I would definitely not be able to make it. But I really do feel that I was, struck sober on step two because I knew my behavior was insane.
Real quick, step two is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
And, the sanity part was something that I knew I lacked. And in step three, really, I think that I heard them say that, you just have to make a decision. And now we're given a simple kit of spiritual tools. So I couldn't really, in step three, make a decision to turn my will and my life over to care of God as I understood him, but that I just had to decide to do that, made a decision, right? So, and they broke it down easy. Like if I decide I want to go on vacation, I had to decide where I'm going to go, and I have to, get a flight, and then I actually have to get on the flight and go there, and
Mhm.
save the money, whatever it was. So I understood that. It was the process of writing the 4-step and kind of getting everything out and putting it all down on paper, and then going to my sponsor and going over step 5. It just was kept really simple for me. But, in step 6, became entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. I got a big list.
How quickly did you do that 4-step?
I wanted to do it right away. They were always like, slow your roll, boy.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the value in now understanding how to live life on life's terms. And so in doing that, I actually went twice and did my 5th step. I was Catholic, so I found a Catholic priest. I went back and I did a confession, or whatever they call it now, reconciliation. And he gave me some important information because he was in the program. And he said to me that, all of the defects of character are simply God-given instincts that have gone awry.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I was introduced to step 7 and started to realize that, if I ask God and humbly ask God to remove my shortcomings, where I could start to learn them. And I use the 11th step prayer a lot, because the 11th step prayer is like the antithesis of the defects, right? Because it's better to understand than to be understood, right? To be loved than to love, right? It is in giving that we receive. So those steps were really key, and they're still key in my life today. As I, made my list and prayed for that willingness, and then actually went out and made those amends. And then, 10, 11, and 12, I still can be angry and have to make amends right away. And then, in 11, I've been a seeker. I've done so many different things. I'm a Reiki master, shaman. I got divorced and the girl didn't work out. But, I really started to open my life up to the different things. And I see God through my dog. My dog, I have this loving relationship with the dog. I mean, I have this wonderful son. And that's the other big thing that I will leave you with, is that it has affected the legacy of my life. My sisters, my family, people that are around me at work, and my son. And to see that could maybe break the cycle. Does he still drink and have fun and stuff like that? Of course. But I just can see how being a sober father, being a sober mate to my girl, being a sober boss, it is the whatever the word is before the pre-word from the surname for the after name. Put the word sober in front of sober son.
Mm-hmm.
Later on in life, my father was in his final days. I had put him out of the house when he divorced my mother. He looked at me side-eyed for years, but 30 years in, I became his confidant. I was the sober son. I took him into hours of his life that he was able to almost do a 5th step with me, and tell me about the regrets of his life, and tell me all his stories, and then make amends to me and make amends to my sister and my mother. He said, I have only one regret, that I never was friends with your mother. And I brought my mom in, and he made amends to her. He held her hand. You could have those
Anthony.
Two in the same room and like two little kids. He's looking at me funny.
It's like circles. It's the pebble in the pond,
ripples,
and the ripples expand
Love that
outward.
song.
And it's that thing where when I was an alcoholic in my active drinking, I was pretty oblivious to the effect I had on the world around me. And today, I get to see that how I am invites other people to be themselves without operating out of fear of how Sam going to react to this.
Yeah.
Things like that. I get to show up in ways that make the world a better place.
Anthony,
Thank you, guys.
This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with Mily T, our amateur grapevine historian, with another Grapevine History Snippet.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mily, and I'm an alcoholic, and I live in San Francisco. The Grapevine carries the history of AA. If you want to find out how AA helped alcoholics who were serving overseas from World War II to present day, look through the Grapevine archives. If you want to find out what women were doing in AA from the beginning, look through the Grapevine archives. If you want to find out how AA survived and thrived during the COVID years, guess what? Look through the Grapevine archives. I wanted to find out how AA members thought about public controversy and Tradition 10 over the years.
Tradition 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues. Hence, the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy.
So I looked through the Grapevine archives, and I found 2 different articles from 2 different eras, 1959 and 1977. In March of 1959, Dwight Eisenhower was president, and the top 2 songs were The Battle of New Orleans by Johnny Horton and Mac the Knife by Bobby Darin. Could that someone be Mac the Knife? An AA Grapevine editor named Archie P. wrote the following.
What a tragedy if the house of AA were to divide, a state which might easily come about if we were to associate ourselves with outside issues or public controversy. We still possess the frailties of human nature. Therefore, in our case, it's almost a certainty that we would be divided among ourselves. A house divided amongst itself will surely fall. Our founders, in their wisdom, have protected us against such a disastrous contingency by formulating Tradition 10.
In April of 1977, Jimmy Carter was president, and the popular songs were Tonight's the Night, Gonna Be All Right by Rod Stewart, Tonight's the Night, and I Just Want to Be Your Everything by Andy Gibb. I just want to be your everything. Our article was written by Barry L. of Manhattan, New York, titled Above the World's Battles. You may not know that Barry L. is the author of our book, Living Sober.
AA has but one primary purpose. To indulge in public controversy is to threaten our unity and impede that purpose. This really hits me as an individual, I think. I must be careful never to give any prospective member or non-AA the impression that AA does take a stand on any of these outside matters. For example, typing the last version of this manuscript for this piece, I've just eliminated 2 paragraphs that would have violated our 10th tradition by using the Grapevine pages for a thinly veiled, sarcastic, would-be humorous attack on certain people and organizations. As a private individual, I have a right to express such views, of course, but in the Grapevine pages, they are inappropriate. As someone else has said, when I violate the spirit of one of the steps, I hurt mostly myself. But when I mess up on a tradition, that can damage our whole beloved fellowship. The 10th tradition also nourishes my sobriety, I think. It means that my personal, religious, or political beliefs do not count in AA, which zaps my egoism just where it is swollen. No matter how vicious my bigotries, how wide my ignorance, or how silly my opinions are on outside issues, I remain as welcome as anyone else in AA. You do not require me to pass a test or merit your approval in order to claim your help. My old tendency to judge people by their beliefs, political affiliations, or other irrelevant concerns has been a constricting rigidity that must have deprived me of experience with lots of wonderful human beings. But when I carry Tradition 10 in all my affairs, it can be a liberating force. In my political club, shared political concerns are all that count, not views on wildlife or childhood training. In church life, shared spiritual values are what count, not sexual lifestyle or choice of tomato juice brand. And in the whole world, nothing about any other people should matter to me, except the humanity that we all share. Should it? I wonder what the world would be like if everybody had a 10th tradition to live by.
As we can see, the relevancy of the traditions are timeless. There are always temptations to bring controversial and divisive outside issues that we are rightly passionate about into our AA meetings. We are here for one purpose, to help the still suffering alcoholic. Here's what Bill W. had to say in the February 1953 AA Grapevine. Members of Alcoholics Anonymous, now restored as citizens of the world, are not going to back away from their individual responsibilities to act as they see right upon issues of our time. But when it comes to AA as a whole, that's quite a different matter. In this respect, we do not enter into public controversy because we know that our society will perish if it does. Since recovery from alcoholism is life itself to us, it is imperative that we preserve in full strength our means of survival.
My name's Mary M., and I'm from San Ramon, California. I subscribe to the Grapevine because it keeps my sobriety really current. There's great topics. The topic this month in August for agnostic members, and I got it, and I hadn't read it yet, but the meeting I went to this morning, we were reading We Agnostics. And I had also just listened to the Grapevine podcast about that guy out of Australia, and he had so many great things to say about it. So listen to the podcast and subscribe to the Grapevine.
Thank you to everyone who supports this podcast with a subscription to the Grapevine magazine in print or in the Grapevine app. Your support makes the half-hour variety hour possible.
John, I reviewed your medical history and the recent blood work, and I'm just not sure what the problem is. Maybe it's all the alcohol.
Well, then maybe I'll come back when you're not drunk.
It's really not that funny. Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org, including our app and how to get in touch with us. Find us on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to know more about AA, visit aa.org or search online for Alcoholics Anonymous and your city.